Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is Three Buck Theater. Here with some interesting news. I don't quite want to call it breaking, but it feels like it's breaking because over the course of the past year, if you have been critical of Star Wars: The Last Jedi, anything less than I loved it. It's got some flaws, but ultimately I loved it. The most subversive, the most cutting edge, the most mature, the most greatest ever Star Wars movie of all time. If you're anything less than that in certain circles in Hollywood, you're branded a heretic. You are. I mean, look at how many articles have come out basically claiming like those who don't like The Last Jedi are just misogynistic bigots. You hear that a lot. Same thing we heard with Ghostbusters. But little thing happened. Little thing happened that kind of like blows a little bit of a lid off of something I think many of us out there have known, and I myself have been finding out more about recently. And that comes to us from a little 38-second audio clip taken by a podcast interview with Kyle Newman. Now, here's the thing about Kyle Newman, and I'm going to get to that after we listen to the clip, because I want you guys to go in cold. If you don't know who he is, I want you to go in cold. I want you to hear this, and I want you to, well, to be like me, to laugh a lot, right? Anyway, let's take a look here.
You look at Last Jedi, I honestly, I don't know anybody out here, maybe two people in my life, and hundreds of people I've talked to that like the movie. All the filmmakers I know that won't talk about it publicly. All the people I know internally, there's all these people that won't, even journalists that gave it positive reviews are like, I do that because I need to maintain my access. Like, privately, there's a lot of people that really don't like that film.
The thing about the too, though.
So you're saying the ones who gave it good reviews really are phony reviews?
But the other thing too is just the fact that,
100%,
like, it should be.
I can't name them, but yes.
No, well, of course, yes.
Now, a lot of people out there are going like, "What the hell?" Right? What the hell? Who is this guy? What does he know? What has he ever done? Right now, that was Kyle Newman on Rebel Force Radio, which is a very popular Star Wars podcast, and you could hear those guys go, wait, what are you talking about, Kyle? I don't get it, Kyle. What's happening here, Kyle? I don't understand it, Kyle. What do you mean, Kyle? Who? He's like 100%. I can't name him. 100%. I can't name him. Now, again, who is Kyle Newman? Well, if you've ever seen a little movie called Fanboys, he's the director. You can see it down here. He is he is a director and producer known for Fanboys 2009. And bring it up here. This is a good coming of age story about friends who are banding together to help one friend dying of cancer. See episode 1 early, going as far as to break into Skywalker Ranch in Marin County, California, and it's a really funny movie. It's a sweet movie. You've got a lot of great actors in it, and it kind of came and went in 2009, but it showed you that there was a bit of a lighter side with George Lucas, because George Lucas gave an absolute dickload of access to these guys to make this movie. And of course, they had hoped to do a sequel. It never really happened, but ultimately it still was. It was a good coming of age movie that really did play up a lot of Star Wars tropes and even mocked Harry Knowles from Ain't It Cool News by having Ethan Suplee play him, and a great soundtrack filled with Rush. All I'm trying to say is it's a good movie. It's a good movie if you like Star Wars. If you are a fanboy of Star Wars, it definitely plays up a lot of those tropes. So Kyle here would definitely have more of an inside track on the goings on of Lucas, at least in what maybe current or former employees are thinking about it, as well as what other journalists in the field are saying, both publicly and privately. Now, there has been some pushback on this. People basically at this point coming out like McCarthyism and saying, name the names, Kyle, you need to name the names. But he can't, and he won't, because he spelled it out right there. He absolutely positively spelled it out right there. If he names the names, these people will get in trouble. And these people will lose their access. And that is a thing in Hollywood. That is a very big thing in Hollywood. If you don't believe me, the Los Angeles Times, the LA Times, criticized Disney and how they were handling an expansion of the park in Anaheim, right? Of how they were going about it. Criticized them in the paper. Disney responded by cutting all access to their movies. Seriously. This happened just earlier this year or last year. And the movie blogging community, the movie commentary community, the film journalists all came together and did this huge outcry of support for LA Times, and Disney backed off. But that type of blacklisting absolutely happens. 100% happens. And I guarantee you in this digital age, it happens quite a bit. It's not to say that these people have to give good reviews. It's all about being, I guess, favorable in their coverage, right? Now, what this essentially does is kind of blow the lid off of a conspiracy that many people have already kind of assumed is there. We've seen this in gaming. We've at least seen the idea of it in gaming. That's actually a big part of what Gamergate was about. But it wasn't so much like journalists working with studios in order to present favorable coverage so they continue to get access. It was about like more of the independent gaming scene being very cozy with the journalists and how that particular type of cronyistic environment can yield unethical results. This is something that if you look at it for a second and you kind of look at who out there has covered The Last Jedi, who's defended The Last Jedi, and then the access that they have, you kind of start to question. Now, I don't want to come out and say that everyone who loved The Last Jedi was lying about it in order to keep themselves going to the movie premieres and getting access to the behind the scenes stuff or getting the tips. I don't want to make that claim because I think there are people out there that do legitimately like it, and there are people out there that legitimately do believe in the properties and do support them implicitly, and that's fine with me. Right. But this is a big problem when it comes to Hollywood, when it comes to this stuff. The way that these journalists operate, or these film buffs and these commentators operate, is that they need the access in order to maintain the clicks. See, what I do on this channel is I wait for news to drop. I don't break any stories. Right. I'm a dude sitting in my office, my home office in Washington. What can I do? I can't even go see early screenings of movies because I'm so far removed from the two major cities that would be showing their early screenings of movies. So I have to wait for stuff to break. But if you are in the world that wheels and deals in that regard, and clicks and advertising is your bread and butter right now, you want to have this access. And if you are afraid of losing that access, it might influence you to go one way or another. Now, again, I don't know who he's talking about specifically, but like I like to do like RT reactions, right? I go and I look at Rotten Tomato scores and I analyze the summaries for more of the layman, right? And I'll talk about it that way. Then I'll get messages from a friend of mine who's a journalist in LA, and he'll be like, oh, dude, I'm hearing like the exact opposite from people, right? Like I'm hearing the exact opposite from people. And he tells me this kind of stuff all the time. And this dude is in it. He's in it. You know what I mean? Like he's in it. So I believe him when he says these things to me. So when Kyle Newman comes out there and says, yeah, not a lot of people like the movie, but people are too afraid to say anything about it, it makes all the sense in the world. And it makes all the sense in the world because keep in mind, again, let's go back to Ghostbusters just to use it as an example. And I think it is kind of the prime example. Don't like Ghostbusters? You're a misogynistic bigot. Happen to be critical of Rose Tico? You're a misogynistic bigot. Think that Ray's a Mary Sue? You're a misogynistic bigot. That kind of seemed like it's a running theme here, that movies that are female-centric or female characters that get criticized because they're just not well-written characters, regardless of the actor's portrayal of them, they're just not well-written characters. Then if you come out and criticize them, you're a misogynistic bigot. We hear this kind of stuff a lot. It's not right. It's not fair. And yes, this culture does breed people to be fearful of going against their ideological biggers. Right? Not their betters, they're biggers. People out there who dwarf them in influence and size and scope and scale. And these people are probably afraid of losing their jobs, losing their status, because these people ultimately have bills to pay, a family to feed. I'm not excusing them if those who have done this. I'm saying I understand it. What I would love to see is that these people come out and they give their true, honest opinion, because their honest opinion does have an impact on the box office. Not all the time, not as much as you might think, but it does have a nominal impact on the box office. And they're out there kind of shaping the landscape of it. And when they start playing defense for the studios and trying to run the, oh, you don't like this because you hate women angle, it just makes movies worse because it doesn't give actual feedback any credence. It simply takes the worst of the worst, shines a gigantic spotlight on it, amplifies it with a magnifying glass, and then basically just tries to go, this is all it is. We've seen this with Star Wars. We've seen this with Ghostbusters. But yet we never heard this with Resident Evil. We never heard this with the Tomb Raider reboot. We never heard this, with Ghost in the Shell for being female-led. Just wasn't the right skin color for some people, even though if you've seen the movie, it kind of makes sense. You kind of understand it. But then again, context never matters here. And I don't want to go on rambling for too long, but this is a big deal. Kyle Newman, who does have an inside track in this, is not an unknown person in the Star Wars sphere, is making this claim, this allegation, and that's a bombshell allegation. So I leave it to you. What do you guys think about this one? Do you think that it's that it's going to be a big deal? Do you think that it's not a big deal, that he's just blowing smoke out his ass? Do you want him to name names? I mean, how far do you think this is going to go? And do you think it only applies to Star Wars, if not just other franchises, other tentpole franchises from studios and journalists afraid to speak their true mind? I mean, look, I'll give you a prime example before I leave here. Go back a couple weeks and look at Jason Momoa being asked about the Snyder Cut of Justice League. Right. And he says point blank, he goes, man, I wish we could really say what we really feel in this industry. He says that and then says, fuck it, and goes, fuck yeah, I want to see it. Right. And that's what solidified him to me as an absolute hero. So I'm saying, like, that a lot of people in Hollywood cannot, in fact, speak their true mind about something, which is one of the reasons why I think commentators on YouTube have been blowing them out of the water, because they can. They're not restricted to that environment. They're not restricted to that world. They don't care. They just give their opinion. But look, and there's things I could argue about people who tailor their opinion for certain crowds because they know that it works versus their actual opinion on something. But that's a whole argument for another day. It goes both ways, by the way. I just want you to know that. But I leave it to you now. What are your thoughts? Let me know down in the comments below, or you guys can just, call into our voicemail line at 818-350-3281. That is 818-350-3281. Of course, my name is Matt Jarbo. This has been $3 Theater. Also, check me out on Discord. Link below in the video description if you guys want to talk with me more directly there. Have yourself a great day, guys, and peace out.